Sometimes the most dangerous enemies aren't strangers, they're the people sitting right next to us. They smile when you walk in, but inside, their heart grows colder toward you every day. You can feel it, but you can't quite prove it. It's in the little digs, the sudden distance, the way they celebrate everyone's wins but yours. And if you're not careful, their quiet hate will chip away at your confidence before you even see it coming. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and expose the subtle signs that someone close to you may secretly despise you. You ever notice how someone can be right there in front of you, same face, same voice, but something feels different? It's almost like there's a quiet frost between you now. They don't hug you as tightly, they don't laugh as easily. The moments that used to be filled with warmth are now filled with nothing. They're still around, sure, they still send a text back. They still show up at the same table, but the connection is thin, fragile, almost like it's hanging by a single thread. See, that's the thing about subtle withdrawal. It's not dramatic. They're not storming out of your life. They're not yelling or slamming doors. It's slow, almost invisible, and that's what makes it so dangerous. You start to wonder if you're imagining it. Was it just a bad day for them? Maybe they're tired, maybe they're stressed, and so you give the benefit of the doubt. But here's the truth, when someone secretly hates you, they won't always declare it. They'll just stop giving you the things they used to. The smiles become shorter, the eye contact fades, conversations feel rushed, like they're already halfway out the door before you even open your mouth. And here's what's even trickier, people like this can still look friendly on the outside. They'll still tell you good to see you at the family gathering, still shake your hand at the office, still like your social media posts. But all of that is surface level. Deep down, they've unplugged the emotional connection, and if you're not careful, you'll keep reaching for it, wondering why it's not there anymore, thinking it must be your fault. I've seen this happen over and over. One day you're close, you share everything, your struggles, your victories, your fears. And then suddenly, they start replying with one-word answers. They stop asking about your day. They no longer check in just to see how you're doing. And the scariest part is, you might start adjusting to this new version of them. You might convince yourself this is just the way things are now, and you stop expecting the warmth they once gave you. But deep down, you feel the absence of something that was once alive between you. It's like a candle in a room. You don't have to see it being blown out to notice the darkness that follows. Sometimes the withdrawal isn't even emotional. Sometimes it's practical. They stop showing up for you in moments they once would have. They used to help you move, now they're busy. They used to cheer you on at your events, now they forgot. They used to stand by you when you were under fire, now they stay silent and let you fight alone. This isn't about one missed event or one bad week, it's about a pattern, a slow retreat from your life step by step. And when you notice it, it hurts, because this isn't a stranger fading away, this is someone you trusted. Someone you thought would be in your corner no matter what. That betrayal doesn't come with an explosion, it comes with silence. And sometimes silence speaks louder than any insult. Now, here's the part that will mess with your head. A person withdrawing from you will often act normal in public. Around others, they may still be polite, even charming toward you. They don't want the world to see the distance, they just want you to feel it, so it becomes this private game of mixed signals. They give you just enough to keep you confused, but never enough to make you feel safe again. And maybe they're not even fully aware of it themselves. Maybe their resentment, jealousy, or hidden dislike is something they've never put into words. But you feel it in the way they no longer lean in when you speak, in the way they keep conversations shallow, in the way they used to notice the little things about you, and now nothing. So what do you do? How do you respond when you see this happening? The easy answer is to confront them, but here's the reality. Sometimes they'll deny it. They'll say, no, nothing's wrong, you're overthinking it, and you'll leave the conversation with more questions than answers. That's why the first step isn't confronting them, it's confronting yourself, asking, what am I actually seeing here? Is this a one-off or is this a repeated pattern? If it's a pattern, you have to start protecting your emotional space, because once someone pulls back their affection, it's only a matter of time before they start pulling back their respect too. And let me tell you, if you let that slide long enough, it will rewrite the rules of your relationship. You'll go from being someone they valued to someone they tolerate, and when that shift happens, you start shrinking yourself just to keep the peace. You stop sharing your good news because you know it won't be celebrated. You stop leaning on them because you know they won't be there. And before you know it, the relationship is just a shell, a shadow of what it used to be. But you're not powerless here. You can choose to notice. You can choose to stop chasing someone who's already walking away in their heart. You can choose to put your energy into people who show up fully, not just out of habit or obligation, but out of genuine care for you. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stop trying to reignite a flame someone else has already decided to put out. Because the truth is, you can't force someone to give you warmth they've already decided to take back. And when you finally see that, you stop waiting for them to come around. You stop giving them front row access to your heart. You stop letting their quiet rejection define your worth. You start walking toward the people who don't just stay in your life, but stay close. It's one thing for someone to tell you they don't like you. It stings, but at least you know where you stand. But it's a whole different kind of poison when the dislike comes dressed up like kindness, when the words sound friendly but there's a sting hidden inside. That's the danger of backhanded compliments and passive-aggressive remarks. They're not designed to start a fight, they're designed to make you question yourself. You've heard it before. "Oh, you actually look good in that color. I didn't think you could pull it off. Oh wow, I'm surprised you got that promotion. Good for you." That's not bad for someone with your experience. On the surface, it sounds like a compliment, but underneath, there's a jab, a little twist of the knife meant to knock you down just enough without looking outright cruel. The thing about people who secretly hate you is they rarely go for open, obvious attacks that would make them the villain, and they don't want that. No, they prefer subtlety. They prefer to smile while they chip away at you, because it allows them to keep their hands clean while you slowly lose your footing. And here's where it gets complicated. You can't always call them out on it without feeling like you're the one overreacting. Because if you do, they'll shrug and say, "Oh, I was just joking," or "You're too sensitive," and suddenly you're not just dealing with their insult, you're defending your right to even feel hurt. It's manipulation disguised as humor. Over time, these little digs start to stack up, one or two you can brush off. But when it's consistent, it starts changing the way you see yourself. You begin hesitating before you share good news because you know their congratulations will come with a side of sarcasm. You start doubting whether your wins are even worth celebrating. You begin shrinking in conversations because their words have trained you to expect a sting with every laugh. And here's the real danger. It's not just about what they say, it's about the way they say it. The long pause before the compliment, the raised eyebrow that tells you they're not impressed, the smirk at the end, like they know something you don't. Sometimes the tone carries more venom than the words themselves. Passive-aggressive remarks work the same way. They are like whispers in the shadows. It must be nice to have that kind of free time. I wish I didn't care about money as much as you clearly don't. Oh, I could never get away with saying something like that. They're not direct accusations, but they plant seeds of doubt, guilt, and defensiveness. You leave the conversation feeling unsettled, like you've just been criticized but can't fully prove it. The thing about people who use these tactics is they thrive on keeping you off balance. They want you questioning whether they're joking or serious. They want you wondering if you're imagining it, because as long as you're stuck in that uncertainty, you can't confront them. And as long as you can't confront them, they keep the upper hand. Now, you might be tempted to think, oh well, maybe they don't mean it that way. Maybe it's just their sense of humor, and sure, that's possible for someone who loves you, respects you, and has a track record of lifting you up. But if you start noticing that the only time they seem to a joke is when it's at your expense, that's not humor. That's hostility in disguise. I've watched this dynamic destroy confidence. Someone goes from standing tall to constantly second-guessing themselves because they're surrounded by someone who never gives them pure encouragement. It's always laced with something, and after a while, you start hearing that voice in your own head, even when they're not around. That's how deep the damage goes. It's like being slowly trained to accept a lower standard of respect. At first you notice the sting, then you excuse it, then you expect it, and before you know it, you've stopped believing you deserve genuine kindness at all. That's the real cost of letting backhanded compliments slide. So what do you do when you recognize this? You start by paying attention to patterns, not isolated moments. Anyone can slip up and say something thoughtless. But if the majority of their compliments leave you feeling smaller instead of stronger, you're not overthinking, you're observing reality. Once you see the pattern, you can start protecting yourself. That doesn't always mean confronting them directly, though sometimes it does. It means deciding that their words won't be the measure of your worth anymore. Because here's the truth, when someone is committed to undermining you, no amount of explaining, defending, or proving yourself will change their mind. And the longer you keep trying to win their approval, the more control they have over how you feel about yourself. At some point, you have to stop looking for sincerity in a place that's only giving you disguised insults. There's a certain kind of peace that comes when you stop reading into every comment and just recognize it for what it is. You stop wondering, was that meant to hurt me? And start thinking, of course it was, and that says more about them than it does about me. That shift takes away their power, because now you're not playing their game. You're not getting caught in the trap of explaining your feelings to someone who has no intention of honoring them. And once you do that, you realize something. They've been trying to lower your confidence because they can't handle seeing you at full strength. They need to dim your light because it reminds them of the darkness in their own, and you don't have to carry that. You don't have to absorb it. You can walk away from their half-hearted praise, their sarcastic support, and their fake smiles, and surround yourself with people whose encouragement doesn't need an asterisk. Because the people who truly value you will never make you question if their kindness is real. There's something about achieving something big, landing a new job, hitting a milestone, buying your first home, finally reaching a goal you've been chasing, that shows you exactly who's really for you. Because the people who genuinely care will light up with you. They'll celebrate you like it's their own victory. And then there are the others, the ones who can't bring themselves to be happy for you without slipping in a little shadow over your sunlight. You tell them you just got promoted, and instead of saying, "That's incredible, I'm so proud of you," they say, "It must be nice to have connections like that." You share that you've hit a personal best in your training, and they respond, "Well, you still have a long way to go if you want to catch up to so and so." You talk about saving enough money for something important, and they shrug, "Yeah, but the economy's going to eat that up soon." They can't just let your moment be your moment. They have to trim it down, poke at it, find the flaw. At first, you might laugh it off. Maybe they're just in a weird mood. Maybe they don't realize how they sound. But when you start to notice a pattern, that every time you're up, they find a way to pull you a little lower, that's not an accident. That's a sign. People who secretly dislike you will often show it in the way they handle your wins. They can't openly attack you when you succeed. It would make them look bad, so instead, they minimize it. They'll compare you to someone who's done more, point out what you still have left to do, or pretend what you've achieved isn't that big of a deal. It's a way of keeping you from feeling too confident, too proud, too fulfilled, because in their mind, if you feel too good about yourself, you might forget where you came from, or worse, you might realize you've outgrown them. Sometimes it's not even words, it's silence. You post your good news and they say nothing. You tell them face to face and their expression doesn't change. No smile, no spark, just a flat "that's cool" before changing the subject. That silence can be louder than any insult, because it's in those moments you realize they don't want to share in your joy. And here's the thing, it's not always jealousy in the obvious sense. Sometimes it's resentment, sometimes it's competition they never admitted existed. Sometimes it's their own insecurity being reflected back at them. Your win becomes a reminder of where they're not in their own life, and instead of facing that, they decide it's easier to make your moment smaller. It can be incredibly disorienting when it comes from someone close to you. You expect this from acquaintances, maybe even rivals, but not from the people you've cheered for, supported, and rooted for when it was their turn. That's why it cuts deeper, because you thought it was safe to be happy around them. You thought your success would be met with the same love and pride you've given them. When you're dealing with this, it's tempting to try to win them over. You start downplaying your wins so they won't feel bad. You soften your excitement so they don't think you're bragging. You even start holding back from sharing your victories at all, because you don't want that awkward moment where you realize they are not actually with you. And before you know it, you've built a smaller life, not because you can't do more, but because you're trying to make someone else comfortable. But here's the truth you have to swallow: you don't owe it to anyone to shrink your light so they can feel taller in the shadows. If someone can't clap for you when you win, they're showing you the limits of their loyalty, and once you see that, you have to believe them. I remember hearing someone say once, pay attention to who gets quiet when you win, and it's true, that moment of silence speaks volumes. The real ones will never hesitate to celebrate you, even if they're struggling in their own life, because when love is real, it's not a competition. Your win feels like their win, there's no scoreboard. The people who undermine you after your achievements aren't trying to give you a perspective. They're trying to keep you in check. They're trying to make sure you don't start believing in yourself too much, because if you do, you might just stop tolerating their quiet sabotage. They know that a confident you is a dangerous you, the kind of person who doesn't stick around in relationships where their joy is a threat. Sometimes you'll catch it in the way they tell the story of your success to others. Instead of saying, she worked hard for years and finally made it happen, they'll say she got lucky, or she knew the right people, or it's good for now, but let's see how long it lasts. That's their way of rewriting your story to fit their comfort level, and if you're not careful, you'll start repeating that version to yourself. The shift happens when you stop looking for their approval entirely. When you stop needing them to validate your achievements, their opinion loses its weight. You stop asking, why won't they celebrate me, and start saying, that's not my crowd. You start surrounding yourself with people who see your wins as inspiration, not intimidation. People who don't just clap for you, they push you toward the next level, and once you make that shift, you'll notice something. Your confidence grows, your dreams expand, and you stop walking on eggshells in your own success. Because here's the reality: the people who truly love you will never make you feel guilty for winning. They'll be there at the finish line every time, no matter how far ahead you run. So when someone shows you they can't handle your victories, don't argue with them. Don't try to convince them to cheer for you. Just take note and keep going. There's a certain kind of hurt that doesn't come from arguments or explosive fights. It comes from the quiet distance that creeps in when someone close to you starts pulling away. You can't point to a single moment it started. There's no big blow-up you can replay in your head. But one day, you realize you're not as close as you used to be, and you can feel it in ways you can't always explain. It shows up in the little things first. They used to text you back right away. Now it takes hours, sometimes days. You used to be the first person they called when something happened. Now you find out through someone else or through a post online. Conversations that used to be long and full of life now feel short, almost transactional. It's not that they're being rude. It's just that the connection you had feels thinner, and you start asking yourself, am I imagining this? Am I overthinking? But then it happens again. They make plans and somehow forget to invite you. You show up somewhere and realize you weren't part of the conversation that led to the gathering. Or you're sitting right next to them, but it feels like there's a wall between you, like they're there physically but not really with you. When someone secretly hates you, they often won't just cut you off completely. That would be obvious. Instead, they slowly remove you from their emotional inner circle. They stop confiding in you, they stop seeking your opinion, they stop including you in the small, everyday moments that used to hold your relationship together. On the outside, it might look like nothing has changed. You still talk, you still see each other, but the closeness is gone. And it's not always about the time spent, it's about the quality of that time. You could still be in the same room, still having a conversation, but it feels like they're somewhere else. Their eyes wander, their responses are short. They're not asking you questions anymore, not digging deeper into your answers like they used to. That curiosity they once had about your life has been replaced with something colder, more distant. One of the clearest signs of emotional distance is selective ignoring. They'll respond when it's convenient for them, but not when you really need them. They'll show up when it benefits them, but disappear when you need support. And the hardest part is, they might still be warm and friendly in public, which makes it even more confusing. Other people see the two of you laughing together and assume everything's fine, but you know better. You know the difference between laughter that comes from a real connection and laughter that's just filling space. Sometimes, this distance isn't about being busy or going through a season of life where they have less time. Those things happen, and real relationships can survive them. No, this is different. This is intentional. This is them quietly stepping back, choosing to invest their energy elsewhere, while leaving just enough interaction with you to keep it from being obvious. It's in the way they keep conversations shallow now. They don't ask how you really are. They just say, "How's everything?" and move on before you can answer. It's in the way they avoid shared experiences that used to be your thing. The restaurants you used to go to together, the routines you used to share, the inside jokes, they all fade. Not because life got busy, but because they stopped valuing them the way they used to. And here's the thing, when you sense this emotional distance, it can mess with your head. You start replaying your last conversations, wondering if you said something wrong. You start questioning your worth, thinking maybe you just weren't interesting enough to hold their attention anymore. But the truth is, when someone chooses to disconnect from you emotionally, that's on them. It's not your job to beg for a place in someone's life. The mistake a lot of people make in this situation is trying harder. They start texting more, reaching out more, overcompensating for the other person's withdrawal. And all that does is put you in a position where you're doing all the work to maintain something the other person has already decided to let fade. That's not a relationship anymore. That's you carrying something alone. It's especially painful when the person distancing themselves is someone you've been close to for years. You remember what it used to be like, the late night talks, the way you could tell them anything, the feeling that they just got you. And now you're strangers with memories. You're holding onto a version of them that doesn't exist anymore, and maybe they'll never admit it. Maybe they'll keep blaming busyness, stress, or distractions, but deep down, you can feel it, their heart has stepped back. And once someone pulls away like that, the connection rarely goes back to what it was, not because it's impossible, but because that kind of trust is hard to rebuild once it's been quietly broken. The question you have to ask yourself is, are you willing to keep chasing someone who's walking away, or is it time to turn your focus toward the people who lean in, who make the effort, who don't just show up when it's easy but also when it's inconvenient? Because here's what I've learned, real relationships don't require you to fight for scraps of someone's attention. They don't leave you guessing where you stand. They don't vanish from the moments that matter most. Real relationships are consistent, intentional, and mutual. They don't just keep you in the loop, they make sure you feel valued inside it. If someone is choosing to keep you at arm's length, you can't force your way back in. You can't make someone care the way they used to. And the longer you try, the more of yourself you'll lose in the process. Sometimes, the most self-respecting move you can make is to match their distance, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. To stop pouring your energy into someone who's already decided they're done giving theirs to you, because the people who truly want you in their life won't make you guess. They won't quietly close the door while pretending it's still open. They'll be present, consistent, and real, and that's the kind of closeness worth holding on to. There's a difference between someone offering constructive advice because they care about you, and someone criticizing you because they can't stand to see you feel confident in your own choices. One builds you up, the other chips away at you little by little, and when someone secretly hates you, they'll often hide behind the mask of just being honest as they tear into your decisions. At first, it might sound like they're trying to help. You tell them about a new plan you're excited for, and they say, "Are you sure that's the smartest move?" You share that you're thinking of starting something new, and they respond, "I don't think you've really thought this through." You mention a decision you've made, and instead of trusting that you know what's best for your life, they instantly point out all the ways it could go wrong. And maybe once or twice, that's fair. We all need friends and family who can give us perspective, who can ask hard questions when it's necessary. But you'll start to notice a difference. The people who care will balance their concerns with encouragement. They'll say, "I just want to make sure you're ready for this, because I know you can do it." The people who secretly want you to fail, they'll stop at the warning. They'll make you second-guess yourself without offering any path forward. Over time, this constant criticism starts to shape the way you see yourself, you begin to hesitate before making choices because you're already imagining their reaction. You stop trusting your instincts because you've been conditioned to believe that your judgment isn't good enough, and the more you let their voice replace your own, the more control they have over your life. Sometimes the criticism comes dressed in comparison. You tell them you've decided to take a certain job, and they say, "Oh, well, my cousin did that and it didn't work out for her." You talk about a trip you're planning, and they say, "I wouldn't waste my money on that if I were you." It's never about genuinely caring, it's about subtly positioning themselves as wiser, more experienced, or more capable than you. And here's what makes it so damaging: because they're close to you, you start to believe they must know you better than anyone else. You trust their opinion, even when it's rooted in resentment. You start making safer choices, not because they're right for you, but because you're trying to avoid their judgment. And eventually, without even realizing it, you've built a life that looks nothing like what you actually wanted, all because you kept adjusting to their criticism. This kind of judgment isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a sigh before they answer. Sometimes it's a raised eyebrow that says more than words ever could. Sometimes it's that little laugh they give before responding, as if your decision is so naive it doesn't even deserve to be taken seriously. It's death by 1,000 cuts, each one small enough to excuse, but together they bleed you dry, and they'll often disguise it as concern. "I'm only saying this because I care about you, and I just don't want to see you get hurt. I'm looking out for your best interest, but pay attention, because real care doesn't strip you of your confidence. It doesn't leave you feeling smaller every time you open up about your dreams." When you recognize this pattern, you have to ask yourself, is this person actually invested in my growth, or are they more comfortable when I stay exactly where I am? Because people who truly support you will challenge you when necessary, but they'll also believe in your ability to figure things out. They won't treat every choice you make as a mistake waiting to happen. The truth is, some people are threatened when you take bold steps in your life, because it forces them to confront the fact that they haven't taken any in theirs. If you succeed, it highlights their own lack of movement, and if you fail, it gives them the satisfaction of saying, "I told you so." So in their mind, the safest option is to keep you doubting yourself enough that you never make the leap. The hard part is realizing that no matter how much you explain your reasoning, no matter how well you defend your choices, they'll always find something to criticize, because it's not really about the choice. It's about you. It's about their feelings toward you, their discomfort with your independence, and their inability to celebrate your autonomy. And if you keep looking for their approval, you'll keep handing them the power to shape your life. That's why you have to learn to separate feedback that's rooted in love from feedback that's rooted in control. One is given to help you grow, the other is given to keep you small. When you stop filtering every decision through their opinion, you start to feel something you haven't felt in a long time: freedom. Freedom to try things without needing permission, freedom to make mistakes and own them without shame, freedom to follow your own instincts, even if they lead somewhere unexpected. Because here's the truth: when someone consistently judges your choices, they're not protecting you, they're protecting their version of you, the one that stays predictable and safe for them. And you don't have to live in that version. You get to build a life that reflects your voice, your values, and your vision, even if it makes other people uncomfortable. And if they can't handle that, that's not your burden to carry. When someone close to you secretly hates you, they'll often try to shape how others see you without ever confronting you directly. This isn't about a big, obvious smear campaign. It's about little comments, subtle jabs, and carefully chosen words dropped into the ears of the right people. They'll disguise it as concern, as a joke, or as just being honest, but underneath, it's a calculated move to make you look smaller in the eyes of others. It might start with them questioning your intentions in small ways. "Oh, I'm sure they didn't mean it." But you know how they are. Those kinds of remarks sound harmless on the surface, but they plant seeds of doubt. And those seeds grow fast when they are watered with repetition. The danger here is that you might not even realize it's happening at first. You'll just notice people treating you differently. Maybe they're less trusting, less warm, or less open. You can't put your finger on it, but there's a shift. That's because the person secretly hating you has been whispering into the spaces you can't see. They want to control the narrative about you, because if they can shape how others see you, they can isolate you without ever having to take direct responsibility. Sometimes it's not even what they say, but when and where they say it. They'll make a cutting comment when you're not in the room, knowing full well it won't be repeated to you word for word, but it will change the way that person thinks about you. Or they'll twist something you said, stripping it of the context, so it sounds selfish, arrogant, or even cruel. And then, when confronted, they'll play innocent. "Oh, I was just telling them what you told me. I thought they already knew." They'll hide behind confusion or concern, but make no mistake, it's intentional. The problem with this behavior is that it forces you into a position where you're defending yourself against things you never even knew were being said. It makes you feel paranoid, like you're imagining it, and that's exactly what they want. If you question it, they can call you oversensitive or accuse you of starting drama. And now they've successfully shifted the focus away from their behavior and onto your reaction. One of the most painful parts of this is that it often comes from someone who knows you well, someone who knows exactly which parts of your character to exploit. They'll take your weaknesses, your past mistakes, or your quirks and spin them in ways that make you seem less trustworthy or less likable. Because they're close to you, people are more likely to believe them. They've known you for years, so they must know the real you, people will think. And that's the twisted advantage they use over time. Their quiet influence starts to shape the way others perceive you in ways you can't easily undo. Friendships start to feel colder, opportunities start slipping through your fingers, you feel like you're fighting an invisible battle. And in a way you are, because you're fighting against someone's carefully constructed story about you. Now, here's where it gets tricky. You can't always confront them directly, because they've built their strategy on plausible deniability. If you call them out, they can say, "Oh, wow, I can't believe you'd think that about me. I was just looking out for you." And if you push too hard, you risk looking like the very person they've been describing to others: emotional, reactive, and unstable. So how do you protect yourself? First, you have to be aware of the patterns. If you start hearing similar phrases about yourself from different people, pay attention. If multiple people seem to suddenly misunderstand you in the same way, it's not a coincidence, it's a trail, and while you may not be able to trace it directly back to the person, recognizing that there's an active effort to misrepresent you is the first step in taking your power back. Second, tighten your inner circle. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, plans, and vulnerabilities. If someone has shown you they can twist your words, stop giving them new words to twist. Keep your conversations surface level, and share your deeper truths only with those who have proven their loyalty over time. Third, don't play their game. They thrive when they can provoke you into a reaction that proves their version of you. Instead, remain calm and consistent in your behavior. Over time, people will notice the gap between what they've been told and what they actually experience with you. It might not happen overnight, but truth has a way of revealing itself. Lastly, invest your energy in relationships that build you up instead of tear you down. The best way to counteract someone's attempts to poison your reputation is to live in a way that directly contradicts their narrative. Let your actions speak louder than their whispers. When people see you showing up with integrity, kindness, and consistency, it becomes harder for lies to stick. The bottom line is this: someone who secretly hates you will often try to control the way others see you, because they know they can't control you directly. Their power lies in the shadows, in the half-truths, in the moments you're not around to defend yourself, but once you see it for what it is, you're no longer playing blind. You can choose how to respond, and sometimes the most powerful response is to step out of their shadow completely. If you're ready to stop letting hidden hate chip away at your life, draw your line today. Decide who earns your time, your trust, and your energy. Protect your peace like your future depends on it, because it does.